Thor is one of the most popular characters in the MCU, and he has been around for such a long time. Thor has had 4 solo movies, which as of this video is the most solo movies given to any MCU character. You would think since Thor has been around for such a long time that he should be the most fleshed out character in the MCU, but unfortunately that is not the case. Thor is more like the most inconsistent character in the MCU. Each time we see Thor in a movie, it's like he's a different character, plus he has had a repeat of his character arcs like multiple times. Like it kind of feels like every movie Thor is learning to become a new and better version of himself, and he's like finding himself in almost every movie as well. And it's kind of funny how each movie Thor is in, it's like he has a different tone and like different personality. Like in the first Thor movie, he was serious along with Avengers. I feel like Thor from his first movie and Avengers are the same character. Then you go to Thor the Dark World and he's like very stoic, extra serious. There's like no personality to him. Then you move to Age of Ultron where Thor has a little bit of a character change. He's much more chill and he makes some jokes here and there, but he's still overall a serious character. Then you move to Ragnarok and he becomes a complete goofball. Then he was badass in Infinity War. They turned him into much more of a serious character, but they really like made him badass and powerful in Infinity War. Then you move to Endgame, and he's just very depressed from the events of Infinity War. And then you move to Love and Thunder, and he was just a dumbass. Like really, he was painfully dumb in Love and Thunder, and it felt nothing like Thor from the previous movies, and it didn't really feel like the natural progression from Endgame. He wasn't even this dumb in Ragnarok. Like, what the hell were they even thinking turning Thor into the dumbest character in the MCU? It's like the MCU never knew what to do with Thor, so they kept playing with different tones for his character. And then they tried to give him cool and new character arcs. It never worked and ended up repeating previous character arcs in similar ways. Also, when you're looking at this from an in-universe perspective, it really makes no sense for a character that is thousands of years old keep having different personalities every 10 years. Like in universe, it's actually not even 10 years, it's like a few years. This guy is like over 1,000 years old and he has 10 different personalities, and that's like seriously concerning. Thor is in Moon Knight, for crying out loud. Besides the mistreatment of Thor in terms of the character being inconsistent, like how does Thor go from this?
Someone has been playing an intricate game and has made pawns of us. Once all these pieces are in position...
You think you could find out what's coming?
I do.
To this?
Yes! Hey! We know each other! He's a friend from work!
In a span of only a few years. Honestly, Thor should have remained serious post-Avengers Age of Ultron. Don't get me wrong, I feel there was a problem with Thor mainly in Thor the Dark World, which wasn't even that bad of a movie to the point where the character needed to be completely changed and reconstructed to the point where they turned him into a goofball and a joke. Also, it seems like a lot of MCU fans felt something needed to change with Thor as well, and Chris Hemsworth also stated in previous interview that something needed to be changed with Thor because he wasn't really enjoying the part anymore. In Age of Ultron, I felt like he was a lot better and they turned Thor into a pretty chill character. And all the Hammer jokes were pretty funny and they were great as well. I really enjoyed Thor from Age of Ultron. And then we have Ragnarok, and that's where they really changed Thor to the point where he was basically a whole new character. And in my opinion, they really did the wrong kind of change to Thor in Ragnarok. I know many love Ragnarok, or used to, because some fans have turned against that film. Personally, I never liked Thor Ragnarok because I didn't find the humor funny, which is fine. Like, you know, humor is subjective along with film. But to me, it just doesn't fit Thor to turn him into such a jokey cartoon, it felt like. Or not just a cartoon, it's just goofy. Like, that's definitely not Thor from the comics, and it's a total 180 from what we have seen from Thor in previous movies, without a good explanation. I was hoping the change was going to turn Thor more into, like, an actual badass. Keep him serious, because I feel like Thor needs to be serious. He's a god that's lived for thousands of years. Turning him into a goofy dumbass is not really the change I think is needed for the character. Like, they could have made Thor into a gladiator from the movie Gladiator. They could have, like, turned Thor into a character like that. Someone who's just badass. And they did that in Infinity War, in my opinion. Yes, he was a little goofy. Not really, though. I mean, yeah, he was goofy. But he had, like, really badass moments. They really made Thor the star of Infinity War, in my opinion. He was just so cool for the first time ever. I remember the one scene where he's just like, "Give me Thanos," and he's like coming in with the Avengers music playing in the background. Like, this is what Thor should have been from the start, and I think it was like the perfect change for the character. The problem with Thor from previous movies wasn't that he was too serious. The problem was they didn't give Thor cool things to do in his own movies. Like in the first Thor movie, they kind of just stuck him on Earth, and Thor had like the most forgettable love story of all time. Me personally, I didn't mind the love story in the first two movies, but I could see why many didn't like it. Also, they made Thor way too stoic. Thor felt like the male version of Captain Marvel sometimes, but nowhere near as bland. Mainly in Thor: The Dark World, I feel like Thor had personality in the first Thor movie, but in the second movie, let's just be honest, he was just really boring and nothing special. And that's because of the way they wrote him and the way they gave him things to do. And he's just missing that gladiator vibe that I feel like was needed for the character. Like, imagine this Thor Ragnarok. Imagine if we got a Thor Ragnarok with Loki as the villain now that he took the place of Odin from Thor: The Dark World. And I just gotta say about Thor: The Dark World, they set up a lot of really cool ideas, and there were some really good moments in that movie, like Loki's death. That movie isn't that bad, and it wasn't that bad to the point where the MCU needed to really reconstruct Thor as a character. And it's not even the worst MCU movie anymore. People still treat that as the worst MCU movie, and some even call it bad. It's really not that bad, and it's not even close to being the worst MCU movie. And I'm sorry, I have to stop using the word bad. It's not even bad. It's solid. But yeah, we needed a Thor 3 where Thor was just basically like a gladiator, tearing shit up, being extremely badass, give him even badass action scenes, have Loki be the villain, and have just shit go crazy, shit get destroyed. And I just feel like Thor Ragnarok should have just been a really cool movie. And they could have done so many things with Loki being Odin, like at the end of Thor: The Dark World, Loki took the place of Odin. They could have done so many cool things with that. And it could have been great for Thor as a character, and maybe we could have got this like really cool scene where he's like, oh shit, that's not actually Odin. Loki, oh shit, you're alive. What's going on? Loki being Odin could have made for some really great scenes in the MCU. But unfortunately, that plot line was wasted and turned into a joke. Also, we could have still had Planet Hulk in Thor Ragnarok 2, like in the OG version of Thor Ragnarok. But this time, it would be a serious Hulk. Because that's another character where I felt like there was no reason to have him be all jokey, especially coming off of the events of Age of Ultron. Like, he left in such an emotional way, and then you go to Thor Ragnarok, and it's just like Thor's a goofy. He's just a goofy character. I'm sorry, but I prefer for Thor to be like Infinity War Thor, or heck, even Avengers Age of Ultron Thor, who has a bit of lighter tone from his previous movies, but still the serious character from his previous movies as well. Kind of seemed like Thor was on the right path in Infinity War. Maybe it was a little too goofy at times. Also in Endgame, he had a solid character arc. I felt like, I know a lot of people didn't like Thor in Endgame. I felt like it made sense for him to be depressed, and it was kind of interesting to see how killing Thanos didn't really change anything, and it just made Thor into this depressed man who lost just so much. And he also gets reunited with his mom, which is such a heartwarming scene, and that's what really saved Thor for me in this movie. I mean, I think they did some cool things with him being depressed, took it a little too far, and kind of made it a joke in some ways. The whole Fortnite thing was stupid, where he's just playing video games and talking about how he's like gonna threaten someone. Like, really? Was that really necessary? It was a little too much in my opinion. But the scene where he reunited with his mom was really just beautiful, and it was done so well. Then at the end of Endgame, he gives up being the ruler of Asgard, which is something I actually do like. I think that does make sense. I think Thor is more of just a warrior and not an actual ruler. I also thought it was kind of a cool idea to have Thor be with the Guardians, and I know a lot of people expected a lot of jokes to come from that, like a lot of funny moments between Thor and the Guardians, but I really think Thor after Endgame could have kind of went on a I stopped pulling my punches arc. Like, maybe he could have had like a bloodlust or something. Thor 4 could have been like a really serious movie about recovering from trauma. Not really super serious. I'm not looking for like a Logan type of movie. Like, still have some humor in there. Like I said, I think the perfect balance of Thor was like Thor from Infinity War. But I did not expect a full-out parody of Thor. Thor: The Love and Thunder just felt like a parody of the MCU and just parody of Thor in general. And they wasted Christian Bale. Like, holy shit. I don't even think that's forgivable, honestly. But Christian Bale is just an amazing actor, and they just completely wasted him. I'm surprised Christian Bale even signed on to be in this movie. Like, did he read the script? Try to find the next Dark Knight. Don't jump into the worst MCU movie of all time. So we're now kind of at a breaking point with Thor. And it looks like there's going to be a Thor 5. Probably going to end the character after that. And it seems like everyone agrees that he should now be serious again. Even Chris Hemsworth himself felt like Thor Love and Thunder went way too far. It looks like the MCU is actually going to make Thor a serious character again. I really don't know what they're going to do with the character. Should there even be a Thor 5 at this point? Like, just have him appear in Avengers movies at this point. What are you going to do with a Thor 5? Now, I would be interested in a Thor 5 if they really want to go serious with the character and turn the movie into like a rated R, Thor going crazy type of movie. Him like chopping heads off of enemies and him just like obliterating so many people. Like, I'll be down with that, but the MCU will never, ever turn Thor into a rated R movie. They don't have the guts to do it. If they could have it their way, they would make Deadpool into a PG-13 movie as well. Like, they kind of already did that with the Deadpool 2 Christmas special thing that they did, which was like the PG-13 version of Deadpool. It's like, really? You just can't keep anything rated R. Like, you're gonna make money with an R rating. I bet if Thor Love and Thunder was like a really serious rated R Thor movie, they would have made more money than that movie did. But Thor will forever be PG-13 unless he crosses over with a rated R MCU character, which is like only 5 of them. But yeah, Thor should have stayed serious. He didn't, and his character just turned into a joke. Plus, his character has been inconsistent since like day 1. And the character is just forever ruined. I mean, I hope Thor 5 is good, and I hope Thor is cool in like future appearances. He has had good moments, but he's just not a good character at the end of the day. And it's because they turned the character into a joke and they made him extremely inconsistent. Now we could just imagine what could have been with a really serious Thor throughout all of his movies and just focused on him being a badass.